Jimmy Cliff walked into a small bar to help a struggling local artist. The customers had no idea who he was, but what happened next gave them the most unforgettable night of their lives. It was a rainy Thursday evening in March 1979 when Jimmy Cliff was walking through the narrow streets of Camden Town in London. Taking a break from his busy recording schedule at nearby Abbey Road Studios. He had been working intensively on new material for his upcoming album and needed some fresh air and a quiet place to think about the creative challenges he was facing with his consciousness-raising music and its role in an increasingly commercial industry. As Jimmy wandered through the winding cobblestone streets that characterized this working-class neighborhood, he heard the faint sound of live music coming from a small, dimly lit pub called the Anchor and Hope, a traditional establishment that catered to local dock workers, factory employees, and neighborhood residents who couldn't afford the trendy clubs and expensive venues that attracted tourists and music industry professionals seeking commercial entertainment. The music he heard was raw and heartfelt, carrying the kind of authentic emotion that immediately caught his attention. As someone who had spent his entire career seeking genuine artistic expression rather than manufactured commercial entertainment that lacked spiritual depth and consciousness-raising purpose that could actually help people deal with real-life struggles and challenges. Curious about the source of this compelling music that seemed to echo the honesty and vulnerability he valued most in artistic expression, Jimmy pushed open the heavy wooden door of the Anchor and Hope and stepped into a smoky, cramped room that held maybe 30 people scattered around mismatched tables and wooden chairs that had seen better days but still provided a warm, welcoming atmosphere for the neighborhood community. The interior was exactly what you'd expect from a traditional British pub that had served the local working class for decades. Dark wood paneling, stained with years of cigarette smoke, yellowed wallpaper decorated with faded photographs of local football teams, a long mahogany bar lined with beer taps and bottles, and dim lighting that created an intimate atmosphere perfect for quiet conversations and live music performances that brought the community together around shared cultural experiences. On the small makeshift stage in the corner, barely large enough for one person and a guitar, stood a young woman in her early 20s with long brown hair and worn clothes that suggested she was struggling financially, but possessed an artistic passion that transcended material circumstances and economic limitations that might discourage less dedicated performers. Her name was Sarah Matthews, and she was performing original songs with a voice that carried genuine emotion and life experience despite her youth, singing about working-class struggles, family relationships, and dreams that seemed impossible but remained worth fighting for through determination and faith in artistic expression that could provide hope and inspiration to others facing similar challenges. Jimmy found an empty stool at the back of the room and ordered a pint of bitter from the elderly bartender, who barely glanced up from polishing glasses, clearly more interested in the local football match playing silently on the small television mounted behind the bar than in identifying customers who wandered in from the street, seeking shelter from the rain and perhaps some musical entertainment. As Jimmy listened to Sarah's performance while sipping his beer, he was struck by her obvious talent and the authentic emotions she brought to songs that addressed real-life struggles and hopes with the kind of honesty that reminded him of his own early days performing in small Jamaican venues before international success changed his relationship with audiences and artistic expression in ways that sometimes felt overwhelming. But it was also clear that Sarah was nervous and struggling with stage fright that was affecting her performance quality, causing her voice to shake slightly and her guitar playing to become tentative during moments when she should have been expressing herself with full confidence and artistic power that would allow her music to reach its consciousness-raising potential. The small audience was supportive but subdued, consisting mainly of regular customers who had come to the pub for drinks and conversation rather than specifically to hear live music. Though they were respectfully quiet during Sarah's performance and occasionally offered polite applause between songs that suggested they appreciated her efforts, even if they weren't fully engaged with her artistic message. Jimmy could see that Sarah was giving everything she had to her performance, despite the challenging circumstances of performing in a working-class pub for customers who were more interested in socializing than listening to original music. But he also recognized that she needed encouragement and support to reach her full artistic potential and deliver the kind of consciousness-raising musical experience that could truly connect with her audience. During a brief break between songs, as Sarah tuned her guitar and tried to overcome her obvious nervousness that was preventing her from fully expressing the emotional depth of her compositions, Jimmy made a spontaneous decision that would transform an ordinary Thursday evening into an extraordinary musical experience for everyone present in the Anchor and Hope. He quietly approached the small stage area and spoke softly to Sarah, introducing himself simply as Jimmy, without mentioning his international fame or success, focusing instead on his genuine appreciation for her talent and his desire to support her artistic development through collaborative performance that might help her overcome her stage fright and connect more effectively with her audience. "Excuse me, miss," Jimmy said with his characteristic gentle manner and warm smile that immediately put people at ease. "I'm a musician myself, and I've been listening to your songs from the back of the room. You've got real talent and genuine emotion in your voice, but I can see you're fighting some nerves up there. Would you mind if I joined you for a song or two? Sometimes it helps to have someone share the stage when you're finding your confidence as a performer." Sarah was surprised, but grateful for the offer from this kind stranger who seemed to understand exactly what she was experiencing and was willing to help her through a difficult moment in her performance without making her feel inadequate or embarrassed about her stage fright and inexperience performing for pub audiences who might not appreciate original music. "That's very kind of you," Sarah replied, still not recognizing Jimmy despite his distinctive voice and appearance that would have been immediately familiar to anyone who followed reggae music or international pop culture. "I am feeling pretty nervous tonight. I don't usually perform for this many people, and I keep worrying that I'll make mistakes or forget the words to my own songs. If you'd like to join me, I'd really appreciate the support and encouragement." Jimmy climbed onto the tiny stage, picked up the spare guitar that was leaning against the wall, and quickly tuned it, while chatting casually with Sarah about music and performance, in a way that immediately put her at ease and helped her relax into the collaborative musical experience that would soon transform the evening for everyone present. The customers in the Anchor and Hope looked up with mild curiosity at this new development, but none of them recognized Jimmy as one of the world's most famous reggae artists, seeing instead simply a friendly man who was helping a young performer overcome her nervousness through musical collaboration and encouragement that reflected well on both his character and their community's supportive values. "What would you like to perform together?" Jimmy asked Sarah, his voice carrying the kind of supportive energy that experienced musicians use to help newer artists feel comfortable and confident during collaborative performances that could help them develop their stage presence and artistic abilities. "I know most of the standard folk songs and blues numbers that people sing in pubs," Sarah replied, thinking of music that would be familiar to both performers and audiences in a British pub setting. "Maybe we could do The Water is Wide or House of the Rising Sun or something like that?" Jimmy nodded and began playing the gentle finger-picked introduction to The Water is Wide, a traditional folk song that would allow both performers to showcase their voices while creating the kind of intimate musical atmosphere that worked perfectly in the cozy confines of the Anchor and Hope and would help Sarah build confidence through successful collaborative performance. As they began singing together, something magical started happening in the small pub that none of the customers had expected when they stopped by for their usual Thursday evening drinks. Jimmy's rich, soulful voice blended perfectly with Sarah's sweet, clear vocals, creating harmonies that transformed the familiar folk song into something approaching spiritual experience for everyone present in the intimate venue. The customers gradually stopped their conversations and turned their full attention to the stage, recognizing that they were witnessing something genuinely special, even if they couldn't immediately identify why this particular performance felt so different from typical pub entertainment they had experienced in their neighborhood establishment over the years. Jimmy's decades of experience performing for audiences worldwide allowed him to support Sarah's singing while encouraging her to express herself more freely and confidently, helping her discover vocal techniques and emotional depths she hadn't known she possessed through his generous musical partnership and professional guidance. By the end of the first song, Sarah's nervousness had completely disappeared, replaced by genuine joy and artistic confidence, as she realized she was creating beautiful music with a collaborator who clearly understood how to bring out the best in other performers through generous musical partnership that prioritized collective artistic success over individual recognition. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause that was much more energetic than anything they had offered during Sarah's solo performance, sensing that they had just experienced something genuinely special and wanting to encourage more collaborative music from these two talented performers, who were clearly creating something unprecedented in their local pub. "That was absolutely beautiful," Jimmy said to Sarah, his encouraging words helping her understand that her artistic abilities were real and valuable, rather than just amateur attempts at musical expression. "You've got a genuine gift for harmony and emotional expression that could touch people's lives. Should we try another song together?" For the next hour, Jimmy and Sarah performed a mixture of folk standards, blues classics, and even a few of Sarah's original compositions that Jimmy helped arrange and harmonize in ways that revealed their full artistic potential and consciousness-raising power that could inspire audiences to think about their own lives and challenges from new perspectives. With each song, Sarah grew more confident and expressive, while the audience became increasingly engaged and appreciative of the musical magic that was unfolding before them in their neighborhood pub on what had started as an ordinary Thursday evening but was becoming one of the most memorable nights in the venue's history. Jimmy introduced elements of reggae rhythm and consciousness-raising themes into their collaborative performance, teaching Sarah how different musical traditions could enhance folk songs while maintaining their essential character and emotional authenticity that connected with working-class audiences who needed music that spoke to their real experiences. The customers were completely mesmerized by the quality of music they were hearing, with many commenting quietly to each other that they had never experienced anything like this in their local pub, and wondering who this mysterious guitarist was who had transformed their ordinary evening into something truly memorable and magical that would stay with them for years to come. "I don't know who that man is," whispered one regular customer to his friend at the bar, "but he plays like a seasoned professional. This is absolutely the best music I'd ever heard in this place, and I've been coming here for 20 years. As the evening progressed, Jimmy began carefully incorporating some of his own consciousness-raising songs into their collaborative set. But he performed them as acoustic folk arrangements that fit perfectly with the intimate pub atmosphere, while still carrying their spiritual messages about hope, determination, and social awareness that could inspire ordinary people to overcome challenges in their daily lives. When Jimmy started playing the opening chords to "Many Rivers to Cross," some of the more musically knowledgeable customers began to sense something familiar about the song and the performer. But in the intimate acoustic arrangement, it sounded different enough that most people still didn't make the connection to the international reggae hit that had topped charts worldwide. Sarah had never heard the song before, but she quickly picked up the melody and began harmonizing beautifully with Jimmy's lead vocals, creating a version of "Many Rivers to Cross" that was both deeply personal and universally moving for everyone in the Anchor and Hope who were witnessing this unprecedented musical collaboration. The performance reached its emotional peak when Jimmy and Sarah collaborated on You Can Get It If You Really Want, with Jimmy teaching her the song's consciousness-raising message about persistence and determination, while helping her understand how music could inspire people to overcome obstacles and pursue their dreams despite difficult circumstances that might seem impossible to overcome. By this point, the entire pub had become completely focused on the music, with customers moving closer to the stage and some even singing along quietly with the choruses, creating a sense of community and shared musical experience that transformed the Anchor and Hope into something approaching a consciousness-raising revival meeting that brought everyone together. The atmosphere in the pub had completely changed from a typical Thursday evening of casual conversation and social drinking to something approaching a spiritual gathering where music was creating genuine connections between strangers and inspiring everyone present to feel part of something larger than their individual concerns and daily routines. As the evening wound down, Jimmy and Sarah performed one final psalm together, a gentle acoustic version of The Harder They Come that emphasized the psalm's spiritual message about standing up for your beliefs and values, even when facing seemingly impossible challenges and opposition from forces that wanted to suppress authentic expression. The audience gave them a standing ovation that lasted several minutes, with many customers expressing amazement at the quality of music they had just experienced, and their gratitude to both performers for creating such a memorable and meaningful evening that had transformed their neighborhood pub into something magical and unforgettable. As Jimmy prepared to leave, he spoke privately with Sarah about her artistic development and encouraged her to continue pursuing her musical dreams with confidence and determination, understanding that she possessed genuine talent that could touch people's lives through consciousness-raising expression that served important purposes in communities that needed hope and inspiration. You have a real gift for connecting with people through your music, Jimmy told her sincerely, his words carrying the weight of his international experience and success. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Keep writing your songs and performing them with the honesty and emotion you showed tonight. Music like yours can make a real difference in people's lives when it comes from authentic experience and genuine care for others. Sarah was deeply moved by his encouragement and asked if she could stay in touch with him to continue learning about music and performance. But Jimmy gently explained that he traveled frequently and suggested instead that she focus on developing her own artistic voice and connecting with other local musicians who could support her growth. Only after Jimmy had quietly left the Anchor and Hope, slipping out into the rainy Camden town streets without fanfare or recognition, did one of the customers finally realize who had been performing with Sarah all evening. A young music student who had been in the audience suddenly gasped with recognition and announced to the absolutely stunned pub that they had just witnessed an impromptu performance by Jimmy Cliff. The revelation sent absolute shockwaves through the small pub, as customers realized they had just experienced an intimate concert by an international superstar who had quietly walked into their neighborhood establishment and spent his entire evening helping a struggling local artist develop her confidence and showcase her talents without seeking any recognition or publicity for his generous and selfless act of community support. "You mean that was actually Jimmy Cliff?" asked the elderly bartender in complete amazement. The famous reggae singer. He seemed like such a regular bloke, just helping out a young performer. I never would have guessed he was somebody that famous and important in the music world. Word of Jimmy's surprise appearance at the Anchor and Hope spread quickly throughout Camden town and eventually reached the national music press. But Jimmy never sought publicity for his generous support of Sarah's artistic development, understanding that consciousness-raising service was its own reward, and that genuine help for struggling artists should come without expectations. Sarah's career took off dramatically after that unforgettable evening, with several music industry professionals hearing about her collaboration with Jimmy and offering her recording contracts and performance opportunities that might have taken years to achieve without the confidence and exposure she gained from their magical musical partnership and the professional validation it provided. The recording contract she eventually signed came from a producer who had heard about the legendary evening at the Anchor and Hope, and specifically wanted to work with an artist who had been personally endorsed by Jimmy Cliff through his willingness to share a stage with her and collaborate on consciousness-raising music. The Anchor and Hope became legendary in London's music scene as the place where Jimmy Cliff had demonstrated that true artistic greatness includes lifting up other performers and sharing success rather than hoarding fame for personal benefit alone, setting an example that influenced many other established artists to support emerging talent. The pub's owner eventually installed a small commemorative plaque celebrating the evening, though he kept it subtle and tasteful, in keeping with the establishment's working-class character, and Jimmy's preference for avoiding publicity about his acts of generosity and consciousness-raising community service. Years later, Sarah would become a highly successful recording artist herself, always crediting Jimmy's encouragement and collaborative spirit as the turning point in her career, when she learned that music could be both personally fulfilling and socially valuable through consciousness-raising service to communities that needed hope and inspiration from authentic artistic expression. She established a scholarship fund for young performers that specifically supported artists from working-class backgrounds who needed encouragement and resources to develop their talents while remaining connected to their community roots and values that kept their music authentic and deeply meaningful. The story of Jimmy's evening at the Anchor and Hope became part of legendary London music folklore, frequently cited as an example of how established artists could use their success and experience to support emerging talent without expecting recognition or commercial benefit from their generosity and consciousness-raising service. Music historians often reference the incident as proof that consciousness-raising artists understand their responsibility to help others develop their gifts and find their voices, rather than viewing emerging talent as competition that threatens their success. The evening demonstrated that authentic artistic greatness includes humility, generosity, and commitment to serving purposes greater than individual recognition, showing how established artists could create magical experiences that transformed ordinary venues into spaces for consciousness-raising community building. If this incredible story of how Jimmy Cliff's unexpected appearance at a small London pub created an unforgettable night of music and helped launch a struggling artist's career moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more amazing tales of how consciousness-raising artists use their success to serve others and create magical moments that transform ordinary evenings into extraordinary experiences.